and create a new folder, and I'm just going to call this add employee, and we can create our index PHP file. Actually, you know what, this is going to be an index, yeah, actually this is going to be PHP. I was going to do an HTML, but I want to actually do some includes here, and you can't do that in an HTML file. So let's open that up. Alright, and let's just get rid of these, paste in some HTML, and we want to access this through our local host. Okay. Now let's create a form. So in our body, we'll have an H1. We'll say add employee, and open up a form. Now we have to pay attention to the form attributes. The first thing we want to do is select the method that we're going to use here. And in PHP, you have something called global variables. You have post, get, session, but post and get refer to ways of transmitting PHP or data, and get is usually used in the URL, and some query in the URL, so you can see the actual data that's being passed. Post, however, is hidden from the user, so it's much more secure, and it's usually used when submitting forms. So we're going to use the method of post. Now the action is going to be where we send the form to process, and that has to be a PHP file. So we're going to send it to a file called process.php. Okay, let's close up our form tags, and let's add our labels and inputs. So label, say first name, and then we want an input tag. It's going to be type of text, and you definitely want to have a name, because we're going to be able to grab these values from the name. So let's give it a name of first underscore name, and put a BR tag, and let's copy that, the label and the input. Do last name. You want to change the name as well. Department. Email. Alright, and now we need a submit button. Say input type is submit. Value can be add employee. Okay, so let's take a look at our form, and it looks pretty ugly. I just want to add just a tiny bit of styling here. I just want to style the labels. I want to display them in an inline block, and I want to set a width of 100 pixels. Okay, so let's save that. Alright, that looks better. I do want to put a little bit of spacing in between here. So let's do a margin bottom of 5 pixels. 10 pixels. Alright, so that looks a lot better. Now this obviously isn't doing anything. It's actually going to process PHP, but we don't even have that file created. So that's what we want to do next. Alright, so this will be process.php. Alright, so you remember when we created this form, we're using the post method. So everything that we pass in as an input is going to be, we're going to be able to access that through the post array. So what I can do here is actually, let's print out the post array. And we use that, we do a $, an underscore, and then post in all caps. Alright, so let's save that. And what it's going to do, we're going to fill out these forms, these fields, and when it goes through, it'll show us the post array. So let's just say first name, we'll just say my name. I can't even spell my own last name. Okay, department, programming. Alright, so now if we submit this information, you can see now we have this array. We have first name Brad, last name Traversy, department programming, email Brad@Yahoo. So anything we type in there is getting put into this array. So we can use this to grab values. So let's say echo post first name. Alright, so let's go back to the form, and if we submit this again, it's saying just Brad because we're printing out the first name of that post array. So anything, the name, okay, the name of an input, in this case first name, is equivalent to the variable, the array value in the post array, okay? Now, what I usually like to do here is put the post variables into regular variables. So we'll say first name is equal to post first name. And let me just copy that, and we'll do that for all of these. Last. Okay, and then we have department, email. We don't need this last one. All right. Okay, so we created the variables. Alright, so now ultimately what we want to do is anything we put in this form, we want to insert into our employees table on our database. So we need to create a database connection. And we need to use that in this file, but I don't want to put all my database connect functions in this file. I just want to include a file. So what I'm going to do, well, I guess first I could do it in the actual file, just to show you. So let me see here. So we're going to connect to the database. You've seen me do this. MySQL I connect, and then we need our parameters. So localhost, then the username. Password. Database name was company. Alright. So now all I need to do is the if statement, which will check and make sure we don't have any errors. This will be connect. Actually, I should have put that up here. If MySQL, okay, echo, just say failed to connect. Alright, so let's check that out. Actually, we need to go to process. Alright, so we do have some undefined indexes. That's because the form wasn't submitted, but we're not seeing any database errors, which is what we're looking for. If I did change the password here and save, then we get some errors. Now, I don't want this in this file. It just doesn't look good. So I'm actually going to cut this out. And I'm going to go and create a new file called database.php, and this will hold our database connection stuff. I'll paste that in there, save that, and then all I need to do is include it. Alright, so save that. Okay, so that's fine. These errors are fine because we didn't submit the form. So the next thing I want to do is I want to create an insert statement, and the fields I want to insert are going to be these variables because these are coming from the form. So we want to say MySQL query, and we want to first put in our connect variable and then our query. So we want to insert into employees, and then we want to put the fields we want to insert, which are first name, last name, department, and email. And we want just the values, and the values are going to be these variable names, but we want to put quotes around them because they're treated as strings. Like the first name is going to be a string, so still put the quotes. Last name, department, and email. Alright, I'm sorry, that's, yeah. Whoop. Alright, so that looks good. Let's save this. Let's reload our form, and let's put in just some random info. We'll say Heather Smith, department can be design, email hsmith@gmail.com. Let's submit that. Alright, so we went to a process.php and we have nothing happened. So we need to check our database. And if we go to company and employees, you can see we have Heather Smith, design, we have her email, so all that information went into the database. So what's missing here? What's missing is that nothing happens afterwards. We don't get a success message, we don't get anything. So that's the last thing we need to do here. Now MySQL has a function that it'll tell us how many rows have been affected after a query is ran. So that's what we need to use to do this. So what we need to do is say we need to do an if statement, actually an if else statement. So we want to say if MySQL affected rows, and then we need to put in the connection variable there. So we want to say if MySQL affected rows is greater than 0. So this is saying if the affected rows after this query is greater than 0, which means that something happened, something went into the database, then we want to do something. In this case, we want to display a message. So we'll say we want to echo paragraph, we'll say employee added. And let's also just make a link to go back. We'll say ahref index.php, go back. All right, so that's what'll happen if there were rows that were affected. We're just going to get a message saying employee added. If not, if there were no rows affected, then we want to echo out a different message. We want to say employee not added. And we also want to display the MySQL or the SQL error. So we'll say echo MySQLi error, and that takes the connection variable. Alright, so let's save that. Let's go back to our form, and let's say Harry Johnson, department is programming. We'll say hj@gmail.com. Alright, so here we click the button. We get an error, unexpected end of file on line 20. And it looks like I have a backwards curly brace. So let's go back and try that again. Okay, our form data is already there, so I'm going to click Add Employee. And we get the message Employee Added with a Go Back link. So let's verify that. And you can see we have Harry Johnson. So that's how you can insert data into a database through an HTML form. Next we will be, let me just check what we're doing next. Next we'll be looking at MySQLi in object-oriented fashion. So up till now we've been using MySQLi as procedural programming with functions, but you can also use it using objects, which is actually the recommended way to use it now. So we'll be getting into that next.